Hey, what's happening? Welcome back to the GM. I'm your guy, Leon Boulanger, and up next, we're going to be talking about the position group of the offensive line, one of the most important position groups on the offense, simply because the offensive line consists of five collective starters, right? Left tackle, uh, right tackle, right guard, left guard, and then also the center. Now, the Baltimore Ravens offensive line was a solid position group this year. Had some injuries, specifically with Ronnie Stanley um, and Tyler Lindenbaum early on in the preseason. But after the season started, things kind of got straightened out and rode pretty well. Although Ronnie Stanley had an additional injury during the season, the positions group still led the Baltimore Ravens running game to a top 4 or 5 ranking in the whole league. But let me not talk you to death. Let me get right to this position. Let me get my screen up. Give me a second. Okay, my computer wants to act a little crazy. There we go. Do this. And let's get this pulled up right here. And let's get it going. So first up with the offensive linemen, we're gonna start with guards, starting guards. Number one, we got Ben Powers, and also Kevin Zeitler. The Ben Powers played well. In fact, played better than expected in most opinions. And because of that, he's probably in for a big payday. He's a free agent this year. And so, because he's a free agent and Baltimore has so many other holes that they got to fill, as we talked about, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, not sure if they're going to be able to pay Ben Powers. And so they may have to wait on the 2024 season draft more specifically in order to get maybe a compensatory pick in return for Ben Powers, unless they sign him and then trade him. But that's a lot of work to get somebody signed and traded. So he may walk in free agency, that being starting left guard, Ben Powers. When we go over to the right guard, we got Kevin Zeitler. Now, the thing with Kevin Zeitler, he has been rock steady all year long. Matter of fact, he's been rock steady since he's been with the Baltimore Ravens. But Kevin Zeitler is getting a little long in the tooth. He is 33 years old, and his cap number is okay for his ability and what he brings to the table. Just a steady guy, both run game and pass protection. His cap number at about $6 million is fairly reasonable. And so I certainly think he will be back next year. Because I think he has one more year after 2023 under contract. And so, as far as our left guards go, Ben Powell's huge question mark. I believe he walks in free agency because he will get a pretty good payday, and Kevin Zeitler will certainly be back on the team as the starting right guard because his cap number is very reasonable, and he has little to no flaws in his game at this point in time, even though he's aging. As we scroll down, we check out the next two positions. And at these next two positions, we have the right tackle and left tackle, Morgan Moses and Ronnie Stanley. Morgan Moses was brought in the 2022 offseason. Certainly he will be back because he had one more year on his contract. It's a pretty reasonable number at about right at $5 million, give or take. And if you cut him, you don't save enough to figure out who to replace him with. So to keep him in place, him and Kevin Zeitler holding down the right side of the offensive line, both in the run and pass protection, will be solid. Although Morgan Moses did have some struggles this year, got beat a couple of times, had some stupid penalties that were costly. And so if he can work on those penalties, I think that him and Kevin Zeitler will be a solid right side of the line combination. Morgan Moses is also 32 years old. And so I can see replacements coming pretty soon for Morgan Moses. And I'll hit on one of those replacements as we move forward. Ronnie Stanley, we know he is the franchise left tackle, has been for some years, and really missed 2 years of football, if we can be honest. He got hurt the same year that he signed his big new deal. and missed basically that whole season, and then came back in the beginning of 2021, played one game and didn't complete that game and missed the whole 2020, the rest of the 2021 season, excuse me. And then came back this year, wasn't 100%, but did work his way into shape and rounded into form and looked fairly decent all year long, although there was some big plays that he gave up. Especially some costly sacks. In particular against um one against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who got Lamar. One of the plays that got Lamar sacked, I believe, and then also for Tyler Huntley, give up a big sack for Tyler Huntley. So, but Ronnie Stanley will certainly be back next year, and the reason why he'll be back is because one, his salary is so big. He has a $23 million cap hit. And if you cut him, it's going to cost him $35 million, which is the rest of his guaranteed money. So there's no real way to get off of Ronnie Stanley's cap number. So he'll certainly be back, and he'll be one more year removed from that uh nasty ankle injury that he had that kept him out most of 2 years. And so hopefully he'll return to form. He is 29 years old, so into next season, he'll be 30. And so it'll be time to, begin to kind of peek around and look for a replacement, whether in the draft or whether free agency at some point. So over our first four offensive linemen, all of them are Ronnie Stanley approaching 30. The other three are over 30. So you're going to be looking for some replacements sometime soon. But for the 2023 season, Zeitler, Moses, and Ronnie Stanley, I expect to be back on the roster. As we look at the next two guys, we have Ricky Tyler Lindenbaum, who turned out to be a real stud at the center position, rock solid all year long, super athletic, made a lot of plays. Um, I think he fills in the space athletically for some of the guards that we have that are not as athletic, but really surprised that he played as well as he did for a guy who's under 300 pounds, but really looked good. He certainly will be back on the roster, no question, next year. Not a whole lot to say about that. And then we have Ben Cleveland, who is in just completed his third year. Did not get a lot of playing time because Ben Powers beat him out at that left guard position. And so I don't really know what his future is. I certainly believe he'll be back on the roster because he's under contract. He's on a rookie deal, so he doesn't cost a whole lot. He may be um, the fill-in for Ben Powers. He's been working at that position since he came into the league, but for whatever the reason, whether it was injury, being out of shape, or whatever, he has not been able to take those steps to um, take over that spot. This may be the year that he does that. So I certainly believe Ben Cleveland and Tyler Linderbaum 100% will be back on the roster for the 2023 season. As we scroll down, um, we got up next. We got Daniel Falele, who is a super huge guy at like 6'9", I think, 380 pounds. Falele actually filled in for Ronnie Stanley and Jawan James after they got hurt. He struggled in the first couple of plays he got in, but he settled in and did a decent job at that left tackle position, which could be a cheap replacement for Ronnie Stanley once his contract is up in a couple of years, once the Baltimore Ravens can get off some of that money. I know it sounds like I'm pushing Ronnie Stanley out of the door, but I'm not. I just see Ronnie Stanley as an expensive left tackle whose best days may be behind him. And so with that kind of salary number at 23 million a year, may be too expensive to keep, but Daniel Falele may not have the quickness to play that left tackle position because he struggles to get out of his stance. And so he may be more of a guard or a right tackle, specifically right tackle. But I think Daniel Falele could also fill in for Morgan Moses. Once Moses' contract is up, if Daniel Falele can lose weight, stay in shape, he certainly may be a cornerstone at that right tackle position. He's big, strong, powerful, and really once he gets his hands on you, as we saw this year, you're not moving. So definitely think he can be maybe a long-term answer for Ronnie Stanley once Ronnie Stanley moves on, but he certainly can be a right tackle replacement after the 2023 season for Morgan Moses. That is Daniel Falele. We got Patrick McCarry, kind of a universal offensive lineman, meaning he can play every position along the offensive line, including the center position. We saw him play left tackle. We saw him play right tackle this year and filled in pretty well, which is why they signed him last year. And in despite his $6 million cap hit this year, uh, number one, they don't save a whole lot if they try and release him, but he is such a solid player. They have to bring him back. They absolutely have to bring him back as kind of like the six man. You know, like in basketball, to have a six man award winner. Daniel Falele would be the six man award winner for the Baltimore Ravens offensive line. So I certainly believe that that he'll be back on the roster next year for 2023. And with his versatility, I certainly think they can afford to go into 2023 without him. As we scroll down, we have a couple of guys. Um, Tristan Colon. Uh, he's a backup center. He filled in this year at right guard for Kevin Zeitler, played well. Um, I think he's a free agent this year. He may have one more year. I can't remember what I read earlier about him, but he's a solid player. You know, I think he's an undrafted free agent who's been with Baltimore for a couple of years. I certainly think that if he is a free agent, if they can keep him on the cheap, they certainly will. But I think that he will be on the roster, especially if he's already under contract. Not really much to say about Tristan Colon. David Sharp, who has been around Baltimore for a couple of years. They like David Sharp. He's shown an ability to play and block with steadiness and consistency. Was on the practice squad for a little while, and then he joined the 53-man roster this year, and really didn't see him a whole lot this year at all. But David Sharp has proven that he can play at the NFL level, and so if he's not a free agent and his contract is not a lot, which I don't believe it is. I certainly believe he'll be back on the roster this year as well. Um, Only because I really believe he'll be back on the roster because you need consistency in an offensive lineman, and all the guys that I talked about are all second and third year guys or veterans, uh, other than Tyler Linderbaum, who played beyond beyond being a rookie for sure. As we scroll down, uh, got a couple of guys who are kind of unknown. I don't know a lot about these guys. These are practice squad guys. So I'm not gonna say a whole lot about these guys. Although I do remember I think you pronounce his name Khalil McKenzie. I do remember him getting a little bit of run. Maybe on some call ups and things like that, but not a whole lot of playing time. I think he can play both guard and tackle. But because he's a practice squad guy, I certainly think he'll be back on the roster, especially if Baltimore has kept him around for a couple of years, because they have. I think that means that they really like his skill set and believe that he can play. So I believe McKenzie may be back at least on the practice squad for the 2023 season. And as we come to the last guy who is also Juwan, who was also a left tackle, who could also play right tackle, Juwan James, who was the starter at the beginning of the season, but went down with, I believe, an Achilles injury. It may have been ACL, but I think it was the Achilles, which kept him out for 2 years before he worked hard, finally got back after a 2 year absence, kind of played well, but, unfortunate, suffered an injury and don't know what his status will be because of the magnitude of an ACL or an Achilles injury. Um, he may not be ready to start the season. So if he is back with Baltimore, don't know that he will be. He'll start out on the physical unable to perform and probably end up on the IR as kind of an 8 week option to be called up after he comes off the IR. But I don't see excuse me, I don't see a huge role for Juwan James in 2023, but I will not rule him out for next year's roster. Well, that's all the offensive linemen that we have. As you see, we have a lot of guys and not a lot of holes. Um, in reflection, Ben Powers could possibly be gone in free agency, but you do have Ben Cleveland who could fill in that spot. You do have some practice squad guys who could even step in, and you also have Patrick McCarry, who has proven he can play every position along the offensive line. But you don't want Patrick McCarry starting at the left guard position only because he's so valuable at the tackle position, both left and right. So you don't want him starting at that left guard position. So you really want to see Ben Cleveland step up and use his power and his strength to hold down that left guard spot. But who knows? We'll see. So that's the offensive line breakdown for the 2023 season. A lot of options, uh, a lot of hope, and what it looks like at least four of our five starters are returning, and the six-man element for Patrick McCarry will also be back on that roster. So that's it for the offensive linemen. That completes the offensive depth chart breakdown. Coming up next in a day or so will be the defense's turn. So thank you guys. If you like this kind of content, please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And this is the GM. I'm your guy, Leon Boulanger, and I'm out.